Okay. Yeah, perfect. So, today's session is on chatbot success and key points to ponder. So in this session, we will basically talk about an overview of chatbots. Some time ago, around 3-4 weeks ago, Aritha had organized one more session on chatbots, which was basically chatbots and NLU, natural language understanding. So if a few of you might have already attended this and a few might not have, there is a link on our website also to this chatbot and natural language understanding. So we don't need this as a prerequisite to our today's session, but then I'll just go over quickly a couple of slides about the chatbot overview so that people who are new to this session can also catch up with that information, and if something is missed, we can cover it there. And then I will continue the discussions with what does it mean when we say I want to achieve chatbot success? And then we will basically look at it from two perspectives. One is the business strategy, and the other is the technical implementation. So I could have basically split them into two and then kept one as separate, but what we also see is at a lot of places, the business strategy and the decisions taken also has a bearing on the technical implementation. So it makes it much better to look at both of them together. So if you are somebody who is trying to just start out the technical implementation of chatbots, so this will give you quite a few points to take home. Or if you are wanting to drive this in your organization, then too it gives you key considerations that are required to make a chatbot implementation a success. And then we will look at each of them in depth, and then we will open it up for the Q&A. So as Amrita told, just to reiterate it, the Q&A, you can definitely use the window, the option given by Zoom, and then raise questions. And at various points, Amrita will also prompt me about the questions that we have got, and I should be able to answer them as we go along. But even otherwise, there will be an end Q&A which gets opened up, and then questions can be asked during that time too. So with this, let me go ahead with it. We have got around 50% of votes on the poll. So I encourage rest of the people also to very quickly take a note of it and then answer that question. And then we will proceed. I'll just give them 30 seconds there, and then we should be able to proceed. Okay, so around 60% of the people have voted for this. So I'll end the poll now. Yeah. And then we should be able to proceed with the session. Yeah. Okay, so a quick overview about Chatbot. It's a software application used to conduct an online chat. So that's the Wikipedia explanation for it. But basically, it's a bot. So when we say bot, so it automates certain aspects of any workflow for that matter. But the thing about chatbot is, so we are putting this chatbot instead of a live human agent. So in lieu of providing a direct contact with a live human agent. So there are many reasons why we would want to do this. So one of them would be in this age of technology, we are talking about web scale applications. That is, one application is capable of handling multi-million user base, and when that happens, it becomes really difficult or improbable for any company to provide live human agents answering certain questions of the users. So at that places, a chatbot is a very good place. Not just as a chatting interface, we can think of it as something which basically automates a lot of stuff. So when we say chatbots, and the hype around it is also because chatbots are basically the driving force behind virtual agents. So a lot of virtual agents, what we speak of, in any form, or basically chatbots can be one of such virtual agent there. It drives something called as conversational commerce. Conversational commerce is customers would basically want to interact with a brand, and that interaction will lead towards generating some value, and that is the conversational commerce that we're talking about. So chatbots basically drive it, and Gartner predicts that 25% of the digital workers will basically be using virtual assistants on a day-to-day basis by 2021. So we are very close to it. And it's also said that a lot of software products which have user interfaces will start to have chatbot as one of the interfaces of communication with the users. That's the best way to think about a chatbot. It's an interface to the user. So what is this basically doing? At a very high level, a chatbot is helping us to automate communication and or a task. So it can also help us automate a particular task. So two kinds of chatbots. One which operates on a set of rules, and it knows exactly what is the menu that drives that rules, and it knows exactly what kind of an answer to expect and where to go next. So this is basically can be very well visualized as a decision tree, or it can be visualized as just a regular if-else-if kind of a programming interface, which basically drives customer through a question and answer session. IVRs are very good examples of it. Press 1 if you want to do something, press 2 if you want to do something else, and then you gave a wrong answer, press 0 to go back to the menu, and all those kinds of things, which all of us would definitely be familiar. Would have called either your telephony support center, or you would have called your bank support center, and you would have had this kind of IVRs in place. Yeah? And then the second part, which is a very interesting one, is about AI-powered chatbots. That is, these are the general conversational chatbots, which basically understands the nuances of a language and extracts commands out of it, and then takes some action from it. And it basically learns from users' experience also. Yeah? So today a chat may not go well, but then if it's trained based on that learning, then the next day the chat might go well. So it basically mimics a human interaction. And then a Turing test is a good test of it. A Turing test basically says that if a conversation is happening between multiple parties, and if you cannot figure out which of them is a bot, then we would say that a chatbot or a conversational bot has really passed the Turing test. Yeah? So many of the attempts are basically at passing the Turing test. Okay, but then, yeah, as I say, chatbots will kind of fall in between these two things. Yeah? So we might have a mix of IVR-based chatbots, or we might have a conversational chatbot, which cannot be your friend, philosopher, and guide kind of a chatbot, but it can at least do some actions and understand why you have come there and take some actions there. So this is where the chatbots really lie with. And I'm pretty sure most of you, if you are an avid shopper on the internet, or you have been browsing a lot on the internet, then reaching out to many support teams for various reasons, you might have come across a chatbot in some form or shape. So now when we say, a precursor to our discussion today, when we say, what is the success of a chatbot? The success can come from various forms at a very high level. It can be about a business wants to increase their customer satisfaction scores. CSAT scores basically are customer satisfaction scores. Maybe because they figure out that the website's interface is not really catching up, and they want to augment that with something else so that their customers are much more happier than what they are currently. It can be about reduce the bounce rates. Yeah, somebody might have figured out that somebody comes to their website and then either just does their job and then they just bounce off the website because the interface was too difficult to maneuver, and then they lost interest very quickly. Yeah? And then they might want to have higher conversion rates. Higher conversion rates as in, so somebody coming to your website and at the end of it taking an action on the website, is what we want. When I say action, not about clicks and reads of it, but an action which basically helps the business bottom line, whatever that might be. So that can be about somebody stays on the website so that the ad revenue is more, or somebody comes to the website and then purchases something. So it can be about anything there. Or it can be about somebody wants to automate their process. Say, for example, consider a use case wherein a large company has a HR organization which has a lot of requests coming in. The request might be about leave, about reimbursement, about some kind of permissions or some kind of letters. So maybe the HR team just wants to automate their processes so that they can scale better. They can handle the requests that are lying in their inbox. Yeah? So success can mean anything, or it can come in various forms when we talk about chatbots. So what I have here, the image here is a very interesting one. This is basically from Swiggy. So Swiggy has been using chatbots for quite some time now, and they have done a very good job at it also. They have kind of what we were speaking about, the two different kinds of chatbots, IVR and AI powered. They have kind of had a very good mix of it. So at some point, I'll also take you there and then show an example there. So they have something around 35 million transactions per day and 350K conversations. It's really not fair, or it's not a fair expectation to say that each of these conversations can be run by a human. So it's not really a scalable team if we do that, and that's why Swiggy went into this mode of chatbot. And this image is also taken from their blog itself. So they have a blog and they have made it very public there. Okay, so now to understand this, so if you want to develop a chatbot, or if you're looking at any of these success areas, and then at a very high level, if you want to say that, have I covered all my bases so that I am going towards a good chatbot implementation? So the next slides that we come across here should actually help you in answering those questions. Yeah. Okay. Let me see. So at this point, if you have any questions, please do drop it there. So at this point, Amrita, do we have any open questions?
Nothing as yet.
Nothing as yet. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So two perspectives of it. Let us look at it from a business strategy perspective and a technical implementation perspective. So when we talk about business strategy, so a lot of transactions, for that matter, go through this kind of a funnel, wherein so you know about the customer, you capture their interest, you help them in making a decision, and then an action happens. So that's generally represented as a funnel. So we will take this funnel as an example and then link multiple key points to this, which will kind of guide us about, okay, what action is helping us in what area of business strategy. And the second thing is about the technology implementation of it. It becomes very interesting here because we are talking about a chatbot which has conversational capabilities. So that means that there is some kind of AI ML sitting behind that software. And that also means that the way you have been dealing with software will be a little different. So that's why you see something like this. So in a regular implementation, it would have been build an application, integrate and deploy, test and release, and then monitor. So and that happens in a cycle. So there is a continuous improvement cycle that happens. But when AI gets into the picture, there will be an extra step wherein we are required to build a model. And then this model itself will have a cycle of its own. So when we reach the tech implementation slide deck, so we will talk about that a little there. So that's where some of the key points or key decisions that you might have taken about in your business strategy will also start to affect what kind of a tech implementation that you want to do. And that's why we bring both of them together in this single webinar. Okay, so talking about business strategy. So keeping chatbots out of the picture, most of the businesses have some kind of a website or an app interface. And then, so that's where the traffic drives. Of course, I mean, how did they come to the website? Maybe there are n number of marketing channels, but they come to their website. And then the customer logs in or enters some details, and that's how the application knows about the customer. And then you capture the interest by showing either colorful images or showing a well-structured information so that your customer knows where is he. So that's where the UI UX kind of comes into picture. So this is a common funnel. And then you help in decision making by providing extra information. So it can be about when is this product shipping to you, or it can be about giving the dimensions of a product so that you can make a decision better. Or it can also be about recommending some other products which also fall in the same range of what you're trying to search. And then an action happens. Yeah? That action could have been anything for that matter. So this is how a transaction, not at a database level, but a transaction at a very high business level flows through. It's a common funnel. How wide or how narrow will basically decide the effectiveness of your application. That's also the reason why there is, here it's wider and here it's narrower. So the wider the action, that means that you have a very high conversion rate. So whoever is coming to your site is converting that into an action. The narrower this is, that means your customers are coming to your website, but they're not really taking any action on your website and they're going out. So it is somewhere in between these things. Yeah? Coming to your website to taking an action that a customer bounces or abandons the transaction that he is trying to do. So now the idea is taking the same funnel. So can chatbots help us better this funnel? That basically means that it should be helping me to either increase the whole area of this funnel and then make this a lot more wider so that I have better conversion rates. So that's where the business strategies drive from. Otherwise, there is no real good motivation for a business to really bring in an extra interface. Yeah. So now, so how this gets useful is, it's not enough if we just think about our chatbots as I open up a website and then a chatbot comes there and then I start talking to it. So it can also be discovered through various other platforms. So on Slack also we have some chatbots. We have some bots basically, and then we also have bots on Facebook. Facebook was one of the first companies to actually expose SDKs and interfaces so that you can build bots out of it. Telegram bots are also becoming very, very popular. Yeah. So if you have been using Slack, and if you go into Slack at some location here and then say you have some apps, and if I say apps here, and if I search for say purchase, so some bots, there are many bots there. So you see that people have actually released a few bots on Slack also, so that if you are somebody who is doing this a lot more often, then you can actually integrate this bot with your regular Slack conversations, and then you will have a seamless interface into it. So like this chatbots have, I think Jira also, I mean talking from a workplace perspective, so even that has a lot of bots and interfaces that can actually integrate with it. So this can be some extra channels which otherwise your website or your application might not have had. So what is to be seen here is both the website and these bots are basically using the same business intelligence behind, but now with bots into picture, you have many other areas in which you can actually start taking in conversations, taking in your customers' interest. So this, at the very least, will result in an increased footfall, even though you have not really taken care of many other areas of it. At least this funnel will start to become wider. So there is an increased footfall. At the very worst, maybe the actions will remain the same, but at least you have an increased footfall, I hope, for the next things. Right? So one of the first things businesses will also need to worry about or think about or plan about is the business needs to identify channels that make sense for your bot. So maybe Slack being mostly used in a business workplace, maybe a generic chatbot about, say, a number is purchased may not really make sense in a Slack integration. So that decision a business will take care. And more importantly, before integrating this, business needs to know, it needs to measure and benchmark the footfall without the bot. Yeah? That's when they will be able to measure the effective implementation of a bot. So what was the footfall that I used to get with my traditional marketing channels, with my website in place? And now by putting in bots, am I really seeing increased footfalls? So, and then it is but natural to expect an increased footfall. So that's the very least that a bot can really do to your website, yeah? Or your application for that matter. So next, once you have driven the customer into your app or into your application, so then one of the very important things that the business needs to do is to know about the customer. So here, we need to make the bot aware about the customer, and this can be done in multiple different ways. One is a form-based interface, wherein you basically collect that information from a form, and the other is a login-based interface. And then you start to gather the information about the current customer's current needs. Now, by doing this, it's more easier said than done, because it's not just about exposing a form, it's not just about giving a login-based interaction, but there are a lot of security concerns that come up when it is very easy for us to have open chat windows. So somebody might enter some sensitive information there, or windows might just be left open and not really closed at regular intervals. And we also have this end-to-end encryption. So security becomes a paramount information here. So it's not about you build the house first and then put the locks in. That's generally how it's mostly done. But then while bringing the bot in, security needs to be a priority. Data security and privacy concerns will have to be topmost when trying to bring in chatbots into the picture. Yeah? So just a quick show of form-based and login-based chatbots. So I have a couple of examples here. See, this is one portal, e-learning portal from a university there. So here you see that there is a bot that is available here. So it says that I am Bits bot and here to help you with your registration related queries. And then if I start to interact with this bot, and if I say I want to start a new conversation with it, now of course it's a bot that's answering me. And then what you see here is it showed a form wherein it expects me to fill in some information and it can proceed. It could have been a little better because I've already logged in. It need not really would have asked me. But then this makes more sense when somebody comes to the website without even logging in, yeah? without even you knowing who this is. If somebody comes in, so this kind of helps. Oops. I think I had stopped Slack, but to show a demo, I opened it. Sorry about that interruption there. So it should help you to know a little bit more, and then you can capture this. So this can also be a regular sales funnel in which you want to capture the user information that is coming in before you give away some more information. So this is one such thing. And then on the other hand, we have this Swiggy's. So this is one of the examples that I started off with. So what Swiggy has done is, in their whole help menu, there are a few places wherein they just give out the information. They have a few places wherein they just give out the information. Yeah? And then there are a few places where they have integrated a chatbot. Yeah? See here, I say I have a query related to placing an order. And when I do this, a chatbot has opened up. And then now look at it. Now, even though I'm asking about my order, because it knows that I have already logged in, it's not asking me for all that information. So it already knows what is happening with this, right? So this way, there can be two different interfaces, a form-based interface, or you already take it from the session, you understand what the login is. So that way, a chatbot can understand about the customer that has come in. The next, when the customer comes in, so now you have a lot of options for you. Instead of making the UI UX drive and capture the interest, because that interest of the user might be hidden 5 clicks away. Yeah? But instead, what chatbots can basically offer is, it can help in offering the right information with the least interaction. and that is valued a lot. So this helps in customer retention on the websites and decreased bounce rates. So a customer comes there, he gets what he has, and then he's happy about that interaction. So he has a favorable opinion about what has happened here. So it helps giving the right information with the least interaction with the customer. Here, for us to capture the interest, one of the very basic things to remember is a chatbot should use common phrases to start a communication. Probably a howdy in India might not make more sense. Maybe in Texas it would. So here a hello or a hi would more be welcome. So knowing our the demographics of the people who are using our application, we need to bring in common phrases which can help us start that communication. And most importantly, a bot should define what exactly is done by the bot and what are we trying to achieve. So it need not be that a bot is not a silver bullet. So there can be areas which we may not want to really automate, and then the bot really need not do it. Yeah? So maybe a bank application may not really do a fund transfer directly through a chat. A lot of slips between the cup and the lip, right? So a lot of things can get lost. So maybe they don't want that. But maybe a bank application might really want to just give out your account information, say what the balance is once they've actually identified who you are. Right? So it needs to define exactly what can be done by the bot. And that's also what we saw with this Swiggy bot. Yeah. So it's not, even though there are multiple bots here inside the helps of it, it's not allowing me to run away with what I want. So it's telling me, it's giving me very specific things that I can do with this bot. So that is one of the most important things. And more importantly, the conversation design should be in such a way that the customer and the bot, they both understand each other. So that's where a common language using common phrases really start to become very important. Okay, so the first two aspects of it about knowing the customer and capturing the interest of it are very easy things to do for any application. Not much of a thing, but most of the chatbot fails happen in this area of helping somebody make a decision. This anyways, even in real life, is a difficult thing to do. So most of the fails happen here. This requires the app to be context aware. What is the customer talking about? And this also is not an aspect that we can start from day one. It requires continuous monitoring of the chats. And then more importantly, the chats should also enable human handoff. So at some point, the chat should be able to say, I'm done here, let a human take over from here. A very important thing in helping somebody make a decision. So continuous monitoring of the chats, ability to flag a chat. So we should be able to automatically flag a chat, and the ability to transfer the control to a human should be one of the top things on while making a business strategy. So I have some examples of the chatbots and basically the fails of it. Yeah? So now in the first example here, somebody has come to it and this is the bot on the left-hand side. How may I help you today? So refillable water bottles into the venue. For some reason it doesn't understand. It says, can I help you with anything else? So the user persists with that question, water bottles in. So it says, I cannot accept any takeaway request. I don't know where the chatbot has gone here. And finally, the user is really frustrated, right? So the user says it's useless. But then what could have happened is the chatbot could have gone on a decision making here wherein it can figure out that the conversation is going in a wrong way because the user is asking about the same water bottles again, and maybe it could have handed it over to a human to answer, or maybe it could have driven the decision at a different place. But that's okay, this will happen. But in the scenes behind, we should be able to flag this kind of a conversation so that somebody can define interactions better. There is always a learning process there. And then look at this. Yeah? So this is a very classic problem one that somebody will fail while trying to build a chatbot. The chatbot is stuck in a loop. So whatever the user tries here, it just has one answer. Please select an option above, and there are no options above. And it is stuck. The user doesn't know where he has to go. Oh, yeah? So finally, he's really amazed about how can this chatbot work this way. So a human handoff done well can look something like this. I'm looking for a one-bedroom apartment. Somebody's asking for something, and then it says, when are you looking to move? So this is a bot. So take a note of it. People also tend to name their bots here. And then it says end of February, and maybe this can't really help. And then it says, one of my colleagues will be with you shortly. So there is a human handoff that is happening with this chatbot. So this is one of the very important steps that happens in a chatbot's life cycle, a transaction's life cycle, and one of the most difficult things to get it right. The next one is the most easy thing, that is the action. Why I say this is the most easy thing is the customer has already decided. So he is making an action. And all we need to do is automate an action, and we have been automating tasks for a long time now. So this is not really in the realm of AI ML. So the user says, go buy this, and that's what it will do. It will buy with the next steps there. Yeah? So a well-defined bot, very important, should be able to converge at an action very quickly. So how quickly the action can happen? Well-defined actions, automating the task. A human handoff can also be an action. So it should arrive at that action as quickly as possible. So now, say some of the actions well taken or something like this. So somebody, I don't know why they want to stay in Antarctica, but maybe they're just messing with the app. But a travel app maybe, which says, I want to stay in Antarctica. It says, no dates yet. So maybe there is no human handoff. But then, instead of just giving back some wrong answers, the chatbot was able to tell that, okay, it has reached the end of the conversation quickly, and now an action needs to be taken. Either you start a new search or go to customer care, which may be a call away or which may be a mail away. So an action well taken. Every action need not be a success customer story, but an action needs to be well taken. And then the second one is, so this is from TechCrunch. So there is this, somebody says set up breaking news, and then it understands. It asks for a confirmation before taking the answer, and it also gives some extra information. Typically, this would be 1 to 2 stories per week. And this guy says, yes, sign me up. Got it. Talk to you soon. So end of action. So very quickly, the bots should be able to converge at an action. So apart from this, there are some softer aspects of it also, in the sense that a chatbot should speak for the brand. In other ways, the chatbot should have a personality. So what I mean by that is, so let me just open up this question to the audience we have here. Say, for example, I'll give you 3 choices about a use case and what kind of a bot would be good there. Yeah? You can use the chat to write. So one of the things is, say, for example, you are building a banking application. So what should be the personality of the chatbot? Cheerful, corporate, or funny? What do you think? Any guesses?
We have a couple of answers.
Yes. Yeah, a couple of them say corporate, and I have one answer which says cheerful. Okay. Yes, I think most of the answers are leaning towards corporate. Yeah. So cheerful, yeah, maybe I don't want, of course not funny, right? So because my account status might not really reflect a funny mood. Yeah? So maybe I want it cheerful, maybe okay, but most of them, they err on the side of caution. They make it very corporate-like. So look at the right-hand side there. So this is actually, I think it's from the Wells Fargo. So here it says, what is my balance? And then it says something like this, and then shall I break it down? So it keeps the conversation at a very corporate level. That's where you have to bring in that personality to the bot. But then on the other hand, I have this weather bot. weather bots can be funny. Yeah? People joke about weather a lot of the time. If it's Bangalore, maybe about traffic too, but then it can be funny. Yeah? So here somebody is asking about weather like in the weekend. So maybe the bot could not identify the location automatically. So it says, are you on a boat? I don't know which location. And then it says Brooklyn. And then the weekend, it could not understand it. And then he again asked for weekend. So at that point, it says, sorry, I dozed off for a second. What were you saying? Yeah? So it's trying to be funny there. But then, of course, it should basically speak for the brand. So a very important aspect about what kind of a personality somebody wants to bring in to their chatbot, and that should drive the conversations. There can be fails here too, because not all things will be taken in a funny thing. Now look at this. I don't know whether should I be laughing at it or not. So maybe the chatbot just wants to ask, how do you term me as a bot, or what do you want? But then it tries to be a little bit more flowery, and then it says, how would you describe the term bot to your grandma? And then the user says, my grandma is dead. Right? So no, and then it just quickly quit out of the action. So there can be a fail here too. So that's why many of the corporates err on the side of caution, and they choose chatbots which are very corporate in their answers and very sensitive with all the increased political vocabulary. So chatbots need to have some kind of a personality. That is why a lot of people also name their chatbots. Yeah? So Roof was one of the chatbots. Bitsbot, the one that I showed, was also one of the chatbots. So they tend to give a name, and a personality starts from a name. Yeah. Okay. So, and then other software aspects business needs to take care. It needs to prepare the internal team so that the internal team understands the importance and the need for the bot. It needs to identify internal champions to monitor and train the bot. Very, very important. It requires people from the technology. It requires people from the business to see the chats which are flagged, to figure out what is the right direction these chats should take, and the right directions to train. It is very important to have internal champions to build these bots. And very, very importantly, business at all stages like this will have some kind of an internal resistance. Internal resistance in terms of this is an internal resistance driven from the fear of automation. Any automation, the fear is reduced workforce. So business strategy should come from a place of positivity. So the need to implement a chatbot is because you cannot have web scale applications really being catered by a handful of human things, or at the same time, just like how your users scale, you cannot really scale your environments also, or your human interactions also. So to do that, chatbot is to widen your funnel and increase your work CSAT scores. So it's not really about reducing the workforce. So it's about preparing the business better for more scaling needs. So that needs to be gone into the people who are in the organization. One of the very key aspects that business needs to look at here. So very quickly, a quick run through of this. Identify the channels that make sense for your bot. Security should be a priority. What exactly is done by the bot? An action should be very clear. We need to continuously monitor and train the bot. That's where the machine learning model comes into picture. There should be a human handoff. So human handoff are places where human beings can take better decisions than the AI. It should have a personality, a consistent personality, and you should prepare your internal teams, identify internal champions, then listen to internal resistance. Very important concepts that business needs to take care. So let me pause here for a second and let me see if there are any open questions at this point. So any of these things wherein you had a different opinion or a different idea about it?
So this is Aritha here. Kindly post or drop in the questions in the Q&A section so that it can be picked up by the speaker.
Yeah, so there is a question about speak more on internal champions. Yeah? So internal champions, see, there are multiple different areas of work. Yeah? So one is, okay, I have a technology product in hand and I deploy it. But then what these internal champions will help us is, these internal champions, as I said, can be from the technology areas, can be from the business areas. So what that basically means is, if they are from the business areas, then they might flag sections of your chat. So they are the ones who will actually help you drive a chatbot. Implementation is the most easiest thing that you do, but then maintaining it and managing this chatbot is the most difficult thing. So how do you do it on a day-to-day basis? These internal champions will do it. So from a business side or from a support team side, somebody who knows all the processes can be an internal champion. Somebody who understands a loop from the technology side might be an internal champion. He might look at the loop and quickly figure out, because I have trained my model like this loop is happening. So these are the people who will drive the initiative of implementing a chatbot and making it a successful implementation and managing it over the period of time. So the internal champions are the ones who will help you drive that whole idea of initiative. So you need a team which drives it. But if you have a team which has some kind of internal resistance and some kind of a negative aspect towards bringing in some kind of automation, they cannot really be your champions. And then it might, at a very low end of the spectrum, it might go towards disrupting the chatbot's interactions also, right? So they might start flagging a good conversation as bad. I mean, we can have a lot of checks and balances there, but why even go there? Yeah? So we need internal champions who can drive the monitoring of this, who can drive the growth of a bot. Okay, so there is one more question about how do I train a bot? So training a bot, in the previous session also we had spoken a bit about it. Let me give a quick rundown there. So the way to train a bot is mostly through looking at the conversations and then building a story about the conversation. So what do I mean about building a story is, somebody comes, says hi. I respond to that hi, and then they ask a question. So now based on what I can do on my application, I should be able to classify this question into multiple different categories. He is asking about a product. He's asking about an order. He wants to close down his account. So maybe we will need to classify it. So to classify that, the questions might come in n number of forms. So that is where I build a storytelling that if somebody is if saying close my login, yeah, maybe it means close an account. I want to be out of this application. Maybe he wants to sign out. So understanding that language and giving as many possible use cases possible will help the bot to train itself. It has a lot more to do with how an ML model training happens. But along with it, in spite of you thinking I have figured out all the sentences that my bot can think of, a new customer might surprise you with a wrong spelling. A new customer might surprise you with a different way of formatting the sentence. So then that becomes a new learning to your bot. So that's how you continuously track these conversations and continuously train these bots. You build them as stories. There will be stories, there will be intents, there will be actions. So when all of these merge together, so we get that kind of a training. Yeah? So to get a quick overview of the training, if you are interested on that, on Aritha website, the previous recording is also up. So I can also share it along with this webinar's things so that you can actually go through that. And we talk a bit about what does it mean to train a bot in that session there too. Hopefully this brief intro gave you that answer.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have around 10 more minutes to wrap up the session.
Okay, yeah, I'm towards the end of it, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so now coming to the technical implementations of it, so it kind of closely follows what we have discussed with the business implementations. So of course, when you say technical implementation, there is a tech stack choice. There are so many other technical choices that you do. But here we are talking about the technical implementations considerations that will make your business strategies also a success. So this is the first image that we spoke about, wherein we said that apart from building the application, which is software application, there is a separate thing which basically talks about building a model, and that has a life cycle of its own. Any machine learning model for that matter has feature engineering, model building, that a data scientist or an ML technology guy would be able to solve for this. So the need for this is application and models, they change at varying rates. The release cycles cannot be same for your application and the model. So what I mean by that is, providing a chatting interface can be the application. The actual chat that happens on a natural language understanding can be the actual model that we have. So that means that while building a technology implementation, we should be able to provide two pipelines, one for the model and one more for the application. And the second thing, security is a priority. So what some things that a technical team can think about are the data protection rights, the GDPR, end-to-end encryption. Yeah? So how do I do end-to-end encryption? A little bit more difficult when compared to a regular website because of the next couple of sentences will basically tell that. A chat should have some kind of timeouts. If something is not attended, the chat should close automatically. And if it's a banking application or a health app which has more sensitive information, an implementation of the bot could also be about self-destructing messages. So after some time, the chat is not even stored. The stat is not even the messages will destruct themselves. A very nice implementation of it. So these are some considerations. Basically, why? Because why end-to-end encryption we talk about is there can be unmasked sensitive messages. Yeah? Somebody might just type out their password in a chat for whatever reason, or they might type out their SSN number or an Aadhaar number. Maybe they don't want to. So this can lead to shoulder surfing, theft of data. Maybe we don't want that. So a technical team needs to consider these technical implementation aspects also. And then while talking about the business, we spoke about the business trying to define what actions my bot can take. But then we need not be, the technical team need not be really linked with adding one action with a monolith bot implementation. In fact, it's very, very important for the technical team to split this bot implementation in such a way that it can scale much better, in the sense that there can be a conversational bot which just handles the conversation, and then it hands over the actual activities to a different bot. So for example, a holiday handling bot. So the conversation might figure out that somebody wants to plan a holiday from day 1 to day 5. And then it can actually trigger different bots, wherein one bot takes care about the resort somebody wants to go. A second bot takes care about putting up an itinerary for the user. And a third bot might be about booking a local taxi, right? So it is best if the technical teams are organized around this in such a way that you can actually plug out and plug in bots. So it is important. So one of the key considerations is, how can I split a business action to multiple bots, which helps us to scale better, which helps us to monitor and track these changes a lot better. And this is a very important aspect that comes with the ML aspect of it. So the technology platform should be able to automate the flagging of failed messages. So maybe there is a machine learning implementation which identifies curse words, and then so all these curse words, it just takes it up and then figures out that it's a failed message. Yeah? So that we might need to automatically do it so that an internal champion can really look into this and then work through it. Need to enable metrics for a model decay. A model decay is a very important aspect, because if you have a software application which is just doing a regular software activity, unless the business rules change, the application will not decay. But in terms of a machine learning thing, because the user is taking decisions based on a machine learning, so that means that you are basically feeding to the bias of a user, a very important thing here. So if you go to a site and then say a food site, yeah, and then you continuously keep ordering healthy food options because that's what it recommended. And then after a few weeks of interaction with that food app, the app might think that this guy likes only healthy options, and that is because the app actually gave only healthy options. Yeah? So those biases will set in, that will decay the efficiency of a model, and that's why the model's life cycles will also be different. So we need to enable these metrics to monitor this machine learning model's decay. That is where a conversation decay also will start to happen. And we should be able to retrain and redeploy models. So train a model, a couple of minutes ago we spoke about it, wherein new conversations come in, new user experiences come in, and then you figure out that the way you are conversing towards an action is wrong, and then you want to retrain and redeploy. So we need to build capability to continuously monitor, train, and deploy. So this is a very interesting thing. Continuously monitor your application and maintain the stability of it is one aspect. Plus, over and above that, you need to do continuous monitoring and training and deploy models. So an important thing. And then, so most of these channels, yeah, Facebook, Telegram, and Slack, they give very easy integrations and interfaces in which you can really build a bot that can be used through multiple different channels. It is also worthwhile for the technical team to prepare their chatbot in such a way that even in the future, they can integrate with all these different chats, all these different channels very, very easily. So Telegram, Facebook, Slack, they have very easy integration SDKs. So this is an important feature. So we have to prepare the interfaces so that we can integrate it with multiple channels down the line. And then when we think about the scaling needs of a chatbot, if you think about it, it has almost the same scaling needs of your website too. So we have to treat the chatbots platform also, just like how you would have thought about an auto-scaling capability for your website. An increased marketing activity might lead to increased hits on your chatbot, just like how it would lead to increased hits on your website. So each chatbot, one of the options is each chatbot can run as a microservice. So that's why this previous information about splitting the chatbot into independent different bots becomes very, very important. So we might want to run each bot as a microservice. And then more importantly, the whole platform that we build should have asynchronous release cycles for models. Models should get deployed, come in and out of your application, and the application itself can have its own cycles wherein you change the font, you change the UI UX, you change the colors of something. So the application can have its own cycles. Very important to delimit both of them there. So build on auto-scaling principles is one of the things. So from a technical implementation perspective, provision 2 different pipelines, one for the model and one for the application. Make security a priority. Whatever is the business action, split that into multiple bots to scale them better. Build capability to monitor, train, and deploy the models, because this is where the champions come into picture. They should be able to monitor the chats and figure out the right direction for the chat. Prepare interfaces, maybe even for the future, to integrate with multiple channels. That's how you start to get good footfall for your bots. And then build this as a platform on sound auto-scaling principles. Because we are not in 2000, we are in 2020. Auto-scaling is a bare necessity that you can give to your application. Okay, so that is good. So let me see if I have any chat questions that have come in. So any more questions on this? I think the available chats I have already answered. Okay, Yeah. So now tying this back with the original agenda that we started off with. So we started off with saying a chatbot overview. So think of bots to automate conversation and task. A very easy definition: automate conversation and automate tasks. What is a success? Customer retention, increased footfalls, higher conversion ratios, ability to upsell a product, ability to cross-sell a product. So each business can define it better, or it can be about simply automating a task because you really don't have that workforce to answer every question that is there. Two different perspectives: business strategy and then a technical implementation. And in the business strategy, we looked at multiple key implementations in terms of all these different points about channels, security, defining the bot, putting it a personality, a human handoff, identifying internal teams, champions, and all these aspects of it. And this also to cater to all these business needs. So there are some technical implementations that we have, and those implementations can be about bringing in all these things, provisioning two different pipelines for a model and an application, bringing in the GDPR, end-to-end security, and all those things as a priority, splitting it into multiple bots so that one of the options is to, I'm not really advocating microservices here, but then one of the options is to really put them as microservices. It has its own pros and cons to it, but yes, a possible way. Build that capability to train so that you can flag messages and prepare the interfaces and build them on auto-scaling principles. So that is good. So are there any open source to build bots? If so, any recommendations? Okay, so a very good question there. Yes, there are many open source platforms available. So one of the most common one is called as RASA, R-A-S-A, and the other is called as Diagflow. So Diagflow and RASA happen to be the topmost things which help us bring in chatbots. And many of these platforms have started to profess something called as no-code chatbot building. Yeah? Of course, it has to be taken with a pinch of salt, in the sense that if you really want to do something really worthwhile, there will be some coding involved. But then just by figuring out your conversation stories, just by putting them together, we can actually have chatbots which are which basically do 40% of your activity just through a no-code kind of a platform. So Rasa and Diagflow are two very popular ones of that. What kind of CPU power is required to host chatbots? Is high-end required to host? So this one, so as I was telling you, there are two, a good question there. As I was telling you, there are two aspects to it. One is the application and other is the model. The application, the infrastructure is very similar to the infrastructure that you would use for a website. You're thinking you get same kind of footfall on your chatbot also. But when it comes to the models, it depends on what kind of model are you trying to build. If you're building a model which has very a lot of deep learning capabilities, then you might require GPUs for that matter. So if it has neural networks which has a huge depth, and if you're doing a lot of image processing, then or even document processing for that matter, you might require GPUs. So to answer that question, two different things. Applications, the requirements are very similar to your website or your web app or your mobile app. The models, it depends on how huge the model is and how much of a data crunch that model is also doing. If it's a regular model, you have a few thousand products, you are trying to do recommendations on it, a regular application kind of servers can be enough. But you are like Amazon or Flipkart, you have lakhs of products and multi-million users using it, then maybe just a CPU-based thing might not be enough. Okay? So it basically is driven by what kind of models you bring in. It's a good question there. Thanks. So any other questions? Okay, so that is good. We have also reached the last time slot, I mean the time slot end also. So thanks a lot for all your interactions. And hopefully this discussion that we have gives you multiple thinking points about what all needs to be considered before you start implementing the chatbot. And I'm glad we picked this up, because even from the poll that we did in the beginning, so most of them were either curious about chatbots or wanting to implement chatbot in the near future. So it was kind of almost a 50-50 split between that audience. So hopefully these points that we have covered will help you start thinking in those directions when you start about implementation. So thanks a lot.